Welcome to God's Table Talk, where real-life stories and testimonies of faith are brought to the table. And now, here's your host, Paul Eck.
And right now on God's Table Talk, we're talking with Wade Rodermund. He is from Jonesboro, Arkansas. Wade, welcome to God's Table Talk. Are you there, Wade?
Glad to be here.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And Wade, tell us a little bit. You're from Arkansas originally. Give us a little bit of your kind of a little short history of your life.
I was born in El Dorado, Arkansas. Grew up in Camden, about 30 minutes away. Basically, I guess you could say come from a broken home. My dad left when I was 4. My mom ended up getting remarried. Grew up with a great stepdad. He was always there for me, but I would never let myself get close to him because of, my dad leaving and, at a very young age of being in 5th grade, I had one of my closest friends pass away. And then in 8th grade, again, had a very close friend pass away. And then also again in 11th grade, I had one of my best friends pass away. And so I was just always would never really let anybody get close to me. I wouldn't get close to anybody because I always had that fear of them going away, getting taken away, something bad happening always. So I just kind of kept to myself and tried to keep my distance from anybody and everybody.
So now your 3 friends who passed away, they die in accidents, or did they die from from different kinds of ailments, or what happened?
In 5th grade, it was a car wreck. He was on his way to school and his mom got T-boned and it was on his side. He died instantly. 8th grade also, it was during a football game. Junior high football game, he had gotten hit and it hit him in a spot that nobody knew that was a soft spot still in his head, and automatic instant, he was gone. And then when I was in 11th grade, with my friends at his house, smoking weed actually, and somebody had laced it with something, we still were not sure what, and it caused his heart to explode. And so that was that.
Wade, how old are you?
I am 35.
Okay, so you've dealt with quite a bit of a lot of death and stuff in a short amount of time. As a child, how did you process, like in 5th grade? How did you process that whole thing of your friend being gone all of a sudden?
It was one of the things I really didn't know exactly, what was going on. It was still for, the whole nother month at least. I can remember still asking, why isn't he at school? When's he coming back to school? And, mom them kept saying, he's not, and they're going off of that he's in a better place, and it's like, well, if he's in a better place, why am I still here? I mean, I want to be where he's at, because that's a better place. And just, as a kid, it's, when they tell you, somebody's going on to a better place, you're just like, well, I want to be in a better place. I don't.
So when you were growing up, I know you said your dad left at 4. Were you going to church? Was your parents, did they go to church, or did you have any exposure to Christianity or Jesus or God at that time?
I did. My grandma and my mom both were Assembly of God every Sunday, Wednesday, and they drugged me with them. A lot of time I didn't want to go. I was just like, I could stay home and watch cartoons, or stay home and watch something, or play in my room. But I just I went because I was made to go. And then I would sit there and not really pay attention, not, just be a typical kid of I really want to play, or, just kind of talk while they're trying to listen, just, instead of stuff that, my kids knew now. And I'm like, I kind of want to get mad at you, but I remember doing this myself. And, it's pretty much all of my life, from early childhood all the way through teen, I was in church. Teenage years were a little bit different. It ended up being I went because I had to I was going as a way to get out of the house. Like, okay, my parents are not going to let me go hang out with these people, but they'll let me go to church. So it was just a way to get out of the house and get away and play basketball and hang out with friends and stuff like that. And it wasn't, I was never actually going for the right reasons.
Yeah. So then you mentioned your last friend who died, you were smoking marijuana. So you're like a lot of teenage kids, get involved in alcohol and drugs and that sort of thing. Did that continue as you became an adult and moved into your adult life?
It did not so much of the marijuana, but I became really dependent on alcohol. Definitely got addicted to alcohol. I still did, I would smoke weed every once in a while, not near as much as we were. That actually kind of got me away from it a little bit, but it kind of got me more into alcohol. Okay, weed, I still remember stuff that's going on when I smoke it, but alcohol, I can forget.
And was it trying to forget the loss of 3 friends? What were you trying to forget?
Pretty much everything. The memories of that, memories of from my dad leaving, and sitting there as a kid with my bags packed, sitting at the door waiting on him to show up to get me on a weekend that it was supposed to be my weekend with him, and him never showing up, and just rebelling like crazy, I guess would be the way to say it. Pretty much still trying to push away my stepdad, who was trying to really step up and be the dad that I needed, and I wouldn't let him.
Yeah, I think people have a hard time understanding, even a small child, a lot of times in a divorce will blame themselves or put the blame on themselves, or think, oh, it's something I did. That's why mom or dad has left and they don't want to be with me anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did for a lot of times. I would ask, what did I do? Why doesn't he want us? It wasn't just why didn't he want me? I was like, well, what did I do to drive him away from not only me, but my mom too? And it was always, it was a nothing you did, you couldn't, but it's still, I blamed myself for a long time that, maybe I could have been better, or maybe I could have done something, or I could have done something to make him, as I got older, make him want to be involved, make him, want to have something to do with me.
So now let's talk about your adult life. What do you do? What do you do for a living?
I am a server / cook / bartender / host at a restaurant. Pretty much do it all.
Yeah. You must be in a small town, because I've done that before myself. So then, are you married? Do you have children of your own?
I am married. I have 5 kids from ages 17 down to 10 months.
Wow. Okay. All right. So then let's move forward to the very recent past. February, you got saved. Give us the story of how this all came about. What was going on in your life?
Well, I had actually completely given up on God. Everything. I was living my own life the way I wanted to live it. I wouldn't necessarily say I turned away from religion, because I started getting into the Norse mythology with like Odin and, you know, Loki and Floki and all the gods from the Norse mythology. Basically, the whole Viking lifestyle. That was what I was living.
Let me ask real quick. What was the draw? I've not had anybody I've talked to that's gone into that. What was the draw of that?
Freedom. It's, you know, just it's that whole of, you know, you get into that mentality of you dictate your life. You are in control of everything that happens. You know, nothing happens in your life that you don't put there. You don't pursue. You don't. You know, if say I got a new car, you know, it was I'm the reason I got that car. You know, it wasn't okay, well, you know, something made this happen, something put the finances there, something put all this in motion. It was, I went to work, I did everything that I needed to do, and I made this happen. And it's just, it's that, you know, complete freedom and not having to worry about if I do this, what's going to be the consequence? Is it going to, you know, is it going to hinder my afterlife? Basically, it's just do what you want to do and don't worry about anything else.
So I guess at some point that became something that you realized wasn't true or wasn't sustaining.
Well, actually, even leading up to, me and my wife had actually had a conversation about it. She had been going back to church and had really got, you know, refilled with the Spirit and was becoming that godly woman that she was before and when we got together. And I mean, I was seeing that and I was like, you know, we had the conversation. I was like, you know, I know that's what you're doing and I'm happy for you because I know that's what makes you happy, but this is what makes me happy. And our pastor was laughing the other day when we were talking about it because I literally told her that night, nothing's going to change that. Nothing is going to change the way I feel right now. This is the life that I'm living and I'm happy with it. Um, I was still battling with depression and stuff like that, but I was still happy in where I was at.
Okay, you mentioned that night. Explain what happened later that night after you had said nothing was going to change this.
Well, it wasn't that night. It was a little bit before, but I went to work on a Saturday, and I come home, and I was like, she had been asking me to come to church with her and invite me. Her and the kids were going, and I was like, no, I can go to work, or I've got this to do, or that to do, or you know, I just coming up with any excuse that I could to not go. And I'd come in and told her, I was like, all right, it's like, I'm going to go to church with y'all in the morning. And she said, are you sure? And I said, yeah. I said, I'll go. And then that Sunday morning, we got up and I was like, I'm not going. It's like, I know I told you I would go, but I'm not going. Uh, I'd had a fracture in my foot, and my foot was in a boot. And it was hurting. that morning. So I was trying to use that as the excuse of why I wasn't going to go. And she kind of done that wife thing that she doesn't really say anything, but she kind of gives you the looks of, you said you were going. Now you're going whether you like it or not. And so I was like, oh, you know what? As long as she won't bother me anymore, I will go just to make her happy. And so she will quit inviting me. I'll go. I was like, I'm in pain, but I'll suck it up and I'll go. And so I got ready. We went, sitting through the service. I was really uncomfortable. I was like, I really don't know why I'm here. I don't want to be here. It's a non-denominational church that she was going to, and there was a lot of dancing, running around, speaking in tongues. And I was like, okay, I've seen this pretty much my whole life from my grandma and mom taking me to church, but this is still really uncomfortable. I just don't want to be here. And she was standing at the back of the church, and after the service was over, they started doing the altar call. And I got up and I was going to tell her that I would be sitting in the car whenever she got done and got ready to get the kids. I would be in the car because I was just not having it. And the pastor was standing on the stage. He was sitting there talking, and he pointed me out in the back of the church as I was trying to walk out, about my foot. And he said, "You having any issues?" Or he said, "Do you have a broken foot?" And I was like, I'm a big guy, but I was trying my hardest to be invisible, like hoping he was talking to somebody else. And he said it again, and I was like, I got a fracture. And one of the other pastors had come back and was like, hey, can I pray for your foot? And I was like, okay, this is going to be another thing like my wife. They're just going to keep on. So I was just like, yeah, sure, go ahead. I'll let you do what you need to do, as long as it'll help me get out of here. And he got down and put his hand on the boot, and that already had me kind of weirded out a little bit because I do not like feet. I don't want to touch my own feet. I don't want to touch nobody else's feet, and I don't want nobody touching my feet. Even though it was a boot and it was still too close to my feet, and it was making me uncomfortable even more. And he kept praying for it, and there's other guys in the church that would come through, and I saw my wife standing over there praying, and I was just like, okay, let's get this over with. Let's go. And my foot was hurting, and he prayed, and then he asked me, he goes, "How is it now? Same, better, worse?" I said, it's still the same. It's like, because I still had in my mind, it was like, I don't know why you're even doing this. It's a fractured foot. It's going to heal when it's going to heal. I was like, it's still the same. You're not a doctor. You haven't done anything. You just sit there and put your hand on it and started saying words. So like, it's still the same. And so he started praying more and even harder, and so did everybody else. And it went from like the pain that was in there from the fracture and just being on, it went from that pain to like a burning feeling inside my foot. It felt like my foot was on fire. And then from that, it felt like the inside of my foot was being like stretched and ripped apart. Like I could feel it, like the tendons and muscles and everything. And it just felt like they were being stretched and ripped. And I was like, we've got to get this boot off. It's hurting bad. Like it really got to the point where I was like, I've got to take this boot off. it felt like my foot was expanding so much that the boot was just getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And I was like, we got to get it off, get the boot off. And I found out later that one of the guys that was there was praying. He was praying. He said, make the boot hurt to where he has to take it off. Make the boot hurt his foot. And so they took it off. We got it off, and then they actually got their hands on my foot. And I was still in a way like, okay, y'all are making my foot hurt so bad. Y'all have got to stop. I've got to get away. I've got to get out of here. I was thinking that in my mind, but I couldn't ever get it out. Like I couldn't say anything. And as they kept going, I could just like, it went from that feeling of everything being ripped to absolutely nothing. Like there was no pain, like nothing. And I kind of put my foot down. I was like, okay, what? Have I reached that level of pain that, it's gone numb and I can't feel anything? And so I kind of put my foot down, and he was still praying, and it's just more and more movement going through. And I hadn't been able to put my foot flat without it being in that boot for a while. Almost a year. And my foot went completely flat, and I there was no pain with it at all. And I kind of started taking a few steps, just kind of back and forth right there where we were standing as everybody was still praying. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take these steps, and then it's going to get to where the pain's back. I was like, I'm doing this. I know that way the pain's going to come back. I'm going to mess with it enough that it's going to come back. And then some of them don't really believe what it is, but I went from taking those, like, I remember taking those few steps, and then the next thing I remembered, I looked down and my son was running beside me because I'd started running laps around the church. And I didn't even realize I was running until I looked down and saw him running beside me and looking up at me, smiling and everything else. And one of the women in the church said something to my wife, was like, you hadn't seen him run like that in a long time. And she said, we've been married for 7 years. I ain't never seen him run. I had no pain whatsoever in my foot at all. And after I got done, I was still back at the back, and they was asking me, I was like, how's it feel? And I was like, it's fine. I was like, I don't feel any pain whatsoever. I haven't been pain-free in a very long time. And it was just like, as they were talking, he asked me, he said, have you ever given your life? Have you ever given your heart to Jesus? And I was like, well, when I was little, I, said the prayer when I was at church with my grandma, because, the pastor was like, repeat after me. And I was like, oh, okay, well, repeat after me. So I said it. I was like, but it wasn't one of those I meant it things. I was saying it because he said, repeat after me. And I'd done been to doctors and everything else over my foot. And then I was like, what made this pain go away? It was just like one of those, it's just supernatural miracles. It's like there's no way this pain just went away. There's something had to happen. Like, what caused this? And it's still like that was running through my mind. And he was like, do you want to now? It's like, do you want to make that decision? Do you want to give your life to Jesus? And I was like, yeah, it come over me, and I was like, yes, I want it. I want to. And it was at that moment that I meant it for the first time. Like, I meant it. I wanted that life. I wanted Jesus to come into my heart, cleanse me from everything that I had been doing, that I'd done, that I'd said. So I ended up praying with him. Then the next week, ended up getting baptized, and
never been the same since.
Yeah, never been the same since. And it's just been, could honestly say, just blessing after blessing.
I'm guessing we have your, and I say this lovingly, your nagging wife behind you.
Yeah, she's sitting over here beside me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's got to be. Do you feel like somebody out of the Bible? Were you reading the Bible about Jesus healing somebody? Do you kind of feel that way of yourself now?
Yeah, it's like every since that Sunday, every prayer service we've been to or anything, somebody's always, they talk about, the blind being able to see and the deaf being able to hear. And it's like, man, I kind of feel like I'm in that company now. Like, I could walk, but it was with a whole lot of pain that I did. And it's like, now I feel like I'd walk everywhere if I could.
Yeah. So you said you've changed. What's changed? What do you see, or what does your family see? The biggest change in you? What kind of changes are we talking about?
Oh, you want me to
What's
answer
the
that?
biggest change you see?
Oh, you're going to bring the expert in.
Well, he kind of left this part out, but we had actually been separated for 3 years, and we had just gotten back together right before this all happened. And he really went from just being before he was negative about everything. It was my biggest pet peeve about him. He hated people. He was miserable to be around. Because he seemed miserable, like he didn't care about his own life. He didn't care what happened. And ever since then, he's been the spiritual leader of our house. I'm not used to not being the boss. Sometimes he'll say, "Hey, I think you need to do this way." And I'll be like, "Oh my goodness, that is so right." And he has been the leader. He's been the one that gets us up for church. I was so afraid that after that first Sunday, I would still have to fight to get him out of bed every Sunday morning and say, "Hey, do you want to go to church this week? You want to go to church this week?" But our church has church on Sundays, Wednesdays, occasionally on Thursdays, on Saturdays. And he has been pulling me to the door every time they're open. He really became the head of the household like God intended.
Wait, for those who, what is your wife's name?
Audrey.
See, Audrey, let me ask you a question, since you're gonna be a part of this now. Were you praying for him at this for a long time for him to be saved and become that man, or was this just you were trying to get him to go to church? You thought it'd make him feel better.
I actually started fasting for him on February 7th. So I'd been fasting for him for 21 days. I'd done a 21-day fast, and that morning, one of the guys in the church told me that God told him to let me know that I was going to have my husband back in a way that I'd never seen him before. And just to be patient, it was going to come when I least expected it. And I, at that moment, was actually discouraged instead of encouraged, because I was like, I'm going to be fasting for the rest of my life. Like, God, I'm hungry. But we went to church that Sunday, and like I said, he's never been the same since.
What was going through your mind when all this began? Because obviously, I'm thinking you weren't involved in them pointing him out or praying over his foot or anything. What was going through your mind as you all of a sudden you watch him starting to be prayed over, and the next thing you know, he's doing laps around the church?
Well, I was actually at the back praying for him, talking to the guy who had said something to me that morning, telling him that I was tired of fasting. And when Wade got up, I didn't know what he was doing. He got up and I was like, "Are you hurting? You just need to walk around." He was like, "No." I said, "Well, do you need to go to the bathroom? It's over there." He said, "No." And that was when the pastor called him out as he was telling me he was going to the car. And I was like, "Oh, goodness gracious." Called him out. Everybody turned around, looked at us. And for the first week, honestly, I don't think I even told him this, but I was very, very doubtful. I went to the leaders of the church numerous times crying, because there were so many times I saw him in the years prior change who he was to fit who he was around. He never really seemed to find what was truly him until that last year when, like he said, he went into the Norse mythology. Before that, it was all about what everybody else wanted. And I was really afraid that it was all because I was pushing him to go to church. And I went to the nursery to change the baby when he started running. And my friend poked her head in the door and she said, "Audrey, your husband's running laps around the church." And I laughed at her. I did. And when I peeked out the door, that was when the lady said, "It's been a long time since you've seen him run like that, huh?" And I didn't mean to let it slip out of my mouth. I told her, I said, "We've been married 7 years and I've never seen him run in my life." And I haven't. I mean, there's a lot of things that he says he does. Now, recently, last night, I think he was called to play the drums at our church. I've never in my life seen him play the drums. And to be honest, he probably doesn't know this. I'm not sure he knows how to play the drums. But we're going to find out next week, I think.
So, Wade, do you have musical ability you've been hiding from your wife?
I used to play the drums in secular bands. Some of my family had started bands, and I would play for them. I did when I was in high school. I would play the drums during our youth services and stuff at church, just because somebody saw me playing at the school one day and was like, "Hey, you can play the drums. We need a drummer at church." And so I was like, "Well, I'm going to play basketball anyway, so might as well play." And it just, but I haven't played in a long time. I pretty much had moved on from that part of my life, and it was like, yeah, I'm not playing anymore. I haven't felt the need or the want to play. And then we had one of our prayer services last night, and I started praying, and I just started getting a feeling, deep down in the pit of my stomach. And I kept being drawn to the drum kit that was on the stage, and ended up going up there and sitting behind it. And just pretty much was like, if this is where you want me to be, if this is where I need to be, let me know. And still not 100% completely led to play, but it was one of them that, it was like, I know what you can do. I trust in you completely. So if this is where you're calling me to be and where I need to be, let me know and I will do it. So still waiting on that confirmation.
Sure. Let me ask you this: are you still processing? Because this is a big thing, and it's only been a couple of months. You still processing of why did this happen when it happened? All those kinds of things, or are you just okay? God, you got me. Let's go.
Still processing. I actually just said something to her earlier today of, I spent my whole life doing this. Now, I've prayed, I've asked God, what's my purpose? Why now? And I was like, I haven't heard anything. I haven't. So I was like, I need somebody to prophesy that what's my purpose? Why has this happened? Why now? Why at this stage of my life? It's I'm still processing of why now.
Let's talk to you about your mom and your grandma. They must be pretty excited. I'm assuming grandma and mom are still around, aren't they?
Oh yeah.
They must be pretty excited at the new Wade.
From what they've talked to me, yeah, they still live down south, about 3.5, 4 hours away from here. So they haven't actually come up here and seen me. They've just the conversations on the phone. But yeah, my grandma, she's been super excited.
I'm willing to bet, because I know an awful lot of hard praying prayer warrior women. I'm willing to bet grandma has been praying about this for a lot of years, and this was a answer to her prayers after who knows how many years. And the same for your mom.
Definitely.
And his in-laws.
Yeah. And my in-laws.
And your in-laws. Well, there you go. That's good. That's great that all that happened. So now as you begin your walk, obviously you got an advantage because you obviously have a wife who's very strong in a walk as well, and you have people around you who are strong in their beliefs to help you. Are you reading the Bible now? Or are you doing a lot more praying? What kind of things are you doing?
Well, I've actually started praying a lot more. I actually texted one of my pastors a little bit ago, and I was like, I don't understand the Bible at all. I was like, is there, a version out there that I guess is like Bible for dummies that, I could read that's going to help me understand this more? And he actually told me which one he has. And so I just ordered it just a little bit ago. But I've always been a musical person. Like music has always been my thing. I would listen to music for everything that I was doing. And so I've started my journey to work has been, I listen to worship music on my way to work. I pray on my way to work. I pray when I get to work. I pray over the building before I walk in. I pray over the people that I'm working with, which is definitely a big step because I have hated the people I work with. Like, I've been to the point where if I was always, y'all could just quit and never come to work, and I would be okay with that because I would not have to see you, deal with you, nothing. And, since it's been every day, I look at the list of the people I'm working with, and I just go over the list and pray for every single one of them. And it's because I've gotten to know them in this past year and a half that I've worked with them. And so I know the type of lives that they live. And I just, when we go to the prayer services, that is my main thing. I'm, praying for a touch for them, or, for me to be able to, reach them, and with them knowing me and the life that I've been living and the things that I've been into, to be able to see the difference and, start wanting that themselves. I've had a couple of them start asking me, where do you go to church and, stuff like that, but they haven't took that next step. It's just been just the beginning of, where do you go? But, I just keep pressing on, still trying to get them there.
Well, and I imagine too, they know what kind of pain you were dealing with and the injury you had, and all of a sudden you come back and the boot's gone and you're not in pain. They're like, well, what in the world did you do? I'm having a feeling that your testimony is something that is very strong, and it will attract people more than it will distract people, right?
Yeah, definitely. We're actually already starting to see some of that come into effect, just from the live video that I shared on Facebook. I've had some of the guys from church ask me, they're like, well, how's it doing? And I'm like, I really don't know. I haven't looked back. And like today I looked at it when one of the guys asked, and I was like, it's already up to over 500 views, and it's been shared multiple times through different things, people in different states. And we actually had somebody from out of town that had seen it, and they were driving in to where we live last night because they were going to come to our prayer service, and the devil attacked them on their way here and they weren't able to make it. But we're still praying and hoping that they will make it, and other people will too. It's, our church has a saying that there will be more than a church until Jonesboro looks like heaven. We want a revival for our entire city, but we want the world to capture as well. We want it to take over. We want to reclaim this territory for the Lord, and take back what's His.
Thank you for tuning in to God's Table Talk. You can listen to the podcast on these 7 platforms: Apple, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, and Breaker. Don't listen to podcasts? You can find us on YouTube as well with full interview footage. All you have to do is search God's Table Talk. Want to share your testimony? Send us an email at info.godstabletalk@gmail.com to schedule your interview. That's info.godstabletalk@gmail.com. At God's Table Talk, we hope you will be blessed, but most importantly, that you will be a blessing.